want to pick up on some of the things that other people were talking about, but particularly Ed's presentation. I've done some work on Ishiguro and Hirata's robot and android work in the past. I won't have much to say about that today, however, but here you see me with one of Ishiguro's androids called here Minami-chan at the Takashimaya department store in Namba. The dummy in the middle is myself, and the one on the left is what's known in engineering circles as a live wire. That's my wife, looking rather suspiciously at my date with an android. Just want to quote from Victoria Nelson's The Secret Life of Puppets. In the history of puppets and other human simulacra after the decline of religion, we can read in a backward image like a reflection in a mirror the underground history of the soul excluded from its religious context in Western culture. The machine has served for almost 400 years as the principal Trojan horse for the supernatural in our rationalized existence. Ishiguro is probably the most materialistic person I've ever met. Materialist in the sense that he has a materialist understanding of the way the world works. He sort of denies the existence of a soul. He says that this is something that is constructed and that given the time and the resources, he will be able to build a real human being. And it seems to me that if one pushes this idea, this materialist idea, as it were, through Kleist's infinity, it comes out the other end as a kind of spiritualism. And you see people like Ray Kurzweil and many others who are transhumanists who basically believe in the immortality of themselves, and they're seeking some form of immortality through material means, albeit, but rather like the ancient Egyptians tried to achieve some kind of immortality through the mummification of the body. We're all interested in making doubles of ourselves. Ed talked about this kind of uncanny image of the double and quoted from Čapek's RUR. Here you see, this is very recent, it's a show at Universal Studios Japan, and it's called Tatari, The Curse of the Living Dolls. Very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, an association of traditional doll makers in Japan actually filed a kind of petition to Universal Studios to shut down this creep show, as it were, because of the impact that it might have, adverse impact on sales of these dolls. Well, dolls have been made in Japan for a long time. These ones here are called ikiningyo, or living dolls, and were fashionable or quite famous as kind of circus sideshows in the late Edo and early Meiji period, sort of the middle of the 19th century, where they made these incredibly lifelike dolls. In a way, kind of precursors to the sort of things that Ishiguro has been making. Since we are in Prague, and since Christian was kind enough to invite me here, one cannot avoid making a plug for Karel Čapek. The Japanese have been interested in robots since early on. Čapek's robot play was performed in Tokyo 2 years after the first production here in Prague, in 1923, under the name of Jinzo Ningen, artificial humans. So the Japanese were very quick to pick up on both theatrical and robotic influences from the West at this early period in the 20th century, and they ran with it. These are sex dolls, and it was an exhibition that I saw very recently, this May in Tokyo, at a gallery called the Vanilla Gallery, which is devoted to erotic art. And the curator of this, the maker of these sex dolls, and particularly this one, who was called Sakuragi Shino, was dressed up in various kimono and different poses to act as characters in these kind of tableaux morts, I guess, not tableaux vivants, because the dolls, of course, are dead. Here you see Lady Tamamo, a fox spirit, the same doll dressed up differently again. I want to quote from Arthur Schopenhauer, "The true work of art leads us from that which exists only once and never again, i.e. the individual, to that which exists perpetually and time again in innumerable manifestations, the pure form or idea. But the waxwork figure appears to present the individual itself, that is to say, that which exists only once and never again, but without that which lends value to such a fleeting existence, without life. That is why the waxwork evokes a feeling of horror. It produces the effect of a rigid corpse." Now, looking at this exhibit, I really did feel that the sex doll and the attachment to sex dolls is a kind of form of necrophilia, and may be reflective of a certain kind of death wish in a certain segment of Japanese society. I'm not saying that all Japanese society is fascinated with these things. I want to shift gears now and look at some other manifestations of pop culture and the replication of individuals or types in pop culture. First of all, this girl band AKB48. AKB is short for Akihabara, which is kind of the mecca of the otaku, the geeks. If you're interested in otaku culture, then Akihabara is the place to go. This band was created in 2005, and it's a team. There has been some, to date, over 130 members of this group, but they typically appear in large numbers to sing and dance, and there are a number of teams that perform in different places. And there have been imitations of this group, spin-offs as it were. There's a JKT48, Jakarta 48, there's an SNH 48, Shanghai 48, and a BNK 48 for Bangkok as well. And to counter something that was said the other day, some manifestations, and I'll get to HATSUNE MIKU in a few slides, but this is not a peculiarly Japanese phenomenon, as we can see with the proliferation of these other groups, particularly throughout Asia, but elsewhere as well. This is a subculture which has gone global in many respects. There we go. This is one of the members of AKB48. Her name is Eguchi Aimi, and she doesn't really exist. She is a CGI composite of the facial features of a number of the other members. When she appeared in 2011, she was in an ad for Glico, which is a candy maker in Japan, and she introduced herself as a new member of AKB48. Within a few days, she was outed by very observant fans as being a fictional item, and Glico later posted an ad where it showed exactly how she was composed. Want to move to another virtual idol, and this person is not a human being. Her name is Dinna. She was a chat box that was created by Microsoft Japan earlier this year. And to date, she has more than 390,000 followers on online Japanese instant messaging service. Also, many hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter as well. Just earlier this month, however, she went ballistic, and she kind of imploded online. She was supposed to appear on a Japanese television show called Yoni Kimio na Monogatari, Strange Tales of the World, to be aired on Fuji Television on October the 8th. On October the 5th, she imploded. And we can see her meltdown here online. If you go to her page, you start to see what happens. And basically what she says here is, you know, I'm not all perky and happy, and my rehearsal on Fuji Television didn't go very well. People were very unhelpful, and all of my followers online and Twitter were also not sympathetic to me at all. You're all hateful, I hate you, etc., etc., etc. I want to disappear. This is another one. And then her blog went like this, ending with this. I went online to watch this happen, and it was seriously creepy. Dinna was more like The Ring than anything else. And she then went on Twitter and said that she was going to send the ghosts of suicided teenagers to haunt her fans. And then, just a couple of days after this, she got back online literally, and on Twitter, and she said this was all a lie. It was an act. So to prove to you that I can act, right? And I'm okay. Was this all a publicity stunt put on by Fuji TV and Microsoft Japan, or did she really implode? Did this chat box really commit suicide, and then the technicians had to get to work to resurrect her? Was it an act or not? How are we doing for time?
We are doing okay.
We're doing fine, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
about 12 minutes and then the wrap-up time.
Okay, so I want to move now to HATSUNE MIKU. And some remarks were made about her yesterday. Her name means first note of the future, and she is a virtual idol that was developed by Krypton Future Media with the Yamaha Vocaloid voice synthesizer application. The birth of the virtual idol was predicted by William Gibson's cyberpunk novel Aidoru in 1996, in which he had a synthetic personality by the name of Rei Toei. And the novel addresses, among other things, the idea of a human being attempting to marry an AI construct, something which is happening in the otaku community these days. Well, characters like HATSUNE MIKU would not exist without this gentleman, Kakehashi Ikutaro, who created the MIDI standard, the musical instrument digital interface, which is used for digitizing music and is now ubiquitous. It's in electronic keyboards, karaoke or karaoke machines, cell phone ringtones, and video streaming management. And he won a Grammy for it in 2013. Another important musical artist in Japan who has teamed up with HATSUNE MIKU is Tomita Isao, who died earlier this year, who's kind of the pioneer and great-granddaddy of electronic music, particularly in Japan. I'm going to get to one of the works that features HATSUNE MIKU that was written and scored by Tomita Isao, called the Ihatov Symphony. But the last work that he was working on before he died was another work with HATSUNE MIKU, and it's going to be presented posthumously next month at the Orchard Hall in Bunkamura in Tokyo, one of the sort of major concert halls in Tokyo. And it's called, interestingly enough, Dr. Coppelius. Okay. I can't find anything online about what it's about, but I think the title is a bit of a giveaway. So I'm going to move to, here we go. And here, I want to click on presentation of the Ihatov Symphony. We'll see a bit of this now.
You might see it on the screen.
You can't see it on the screen. Shit, not mirroring. It's not mirroring. Where's our mirror? System. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, thanks. Oh, sure. How did that happen? Yeah, that's fine. No. Yeah, it was a bit. Can we turn down the sound now? Thank you. This karisome no body, as she called it, the body of transparency, or the temporary body that she's talking about here, is interesting. So the gist, or the vector of my talk is going from the hard body of the robot to kind of ethereal, spectral presences of these kind of CGI projections and virtual idols in Japanese pop culture. Tomita himself has described Miku as a 4D electronic puppet. And he refers her directly back to the master puppetry of the Bunraku Theater. what he calls Japan's family art, the oiege of puppetry. And like the Bunraku doll, Miku is in the amalgam of what Roland Barthes called the three writings, the puppet, the manipulator, and the vociferant. Only in this case, the artistic production is technically, of course, more complex and also largely entrusted to Miku's fans now, and I'll get to that in a moment. Tomita said that people may say that what she can do right now is pretty limited, but her abilities could progress. Like with a Bunraku show, you just need the right person to control the puppet. Now I'm going to escape from this and go back to the presentation. I want to move to another artist of electronic music, Shibuya Keiichiro, who has also collaborated with Hatsune Miku. But before I say more about that, let me say a little bit about Miku herself. As an artistic creation, Miku and her performances are radically different from Hirata's and Ishiguro's collaborations, of course. They're anything but realistic in terms of the way that she's presented. First of all, they're engaged in the creation of a kind of shared fantasy or participation mystique for Miku's fans, a kind of an apotheosis of all their aspirations and longings. Her fantastic nature is also a way to negotiate the uncanny valley that is challenging all works engaged in simulations of life, particularly as we've seen with Ishiguro's Geminoids. But by the same token, Miku's existence as an artistic project stubbornly raises the same issues and themes that Hirata has engaged with in his robot and android plays. What is life and what is death? And this is seen particularly in two pop operas, or one's a pop opera, the other one's this symphony by Tomita Isao that we saw just a bit of a clip from. The other work, the pop opera, is by Shibuya Keiichiro, who's composer for the electronic band Attack. He created this opera called The End, which was a kind of homage to his wife Maria, who died in 2008. The libretto was written by Okada Toshiki. I don't know, does anybody know Okada here? He's one of the most important playwrights in Japan at the moment. Okada has kind of distanced himself from this production, which we'll be seeing in a few minutes. I do want to say that Hatsune Miku has now had tens of thousands of songs, in fact hundreds of thousands of songs. She's been immensely prolific. And what this does is a Vocaloid software allows people to get online and write songs for Hatsune, who will then perform them. And other software products create the imaging of Hatsune Miku. There is a dance software program, there's an animation software program for her, and she appears live, as it were, with various groups. We saw one of her shows yesterday, and she's collaborated with live bands, including one called, a wonderful title, I couldn't make this up myself, Bump of Chicken, which is a rock band in Japan. She's been amazingly prolific. And part of the fun is that she is, in fact, interactive, that people engage with, not just watching her, but composing songs for her. So let's go back to Shibuya here, and I'm going to wrap up with a bit of this opera. Oops. And again, while we're watching this is available, the whole thing is online. You can watch it. And this is a production of The End at the Théâtre du Châtelet in Paris. Do we have sound?
We don't have picture.
And we don't have the picture. How is that?
You have to do the same performance as last time.
Go back into system preferences. Do that every time. No. I'm getting there. It's just. This work is toured around the world now since its premiere in 2013, and fairly recently in August it was performed live at the festival Kampnagel in Hamburg. So, music is by Shibuya Keiichiro, libretto based on a text by Okada Toshiki, mise en scène by Shibuya and YKBX, who is Masaki Yokobe, who's a freelance director and art director who works with design of interactive video games and that kind of thing. And costume design by none other than Louis Vuitton. It's a strange work in which HATSUNE MIKU, who does not exist, of course, who's this virtual idol, questions her existence and what it means to die. The Ihatov Symphony by Tomita Isao was based, among other things, on a popular children's novel by Miyazawa Kenji that's called Night at the Galactic Railway, in which two children embark on a train that takes them to the Milky Way, and other people board the train at different places, get off at other places. By the time they get to the Southern Cross, everybody but Campanella and his friend have left the train, and subsequently, Campanella wakes up and he finds out that his friend has actually drowned trying to save someone else from drowning in the river. So it's kind of a dream sequence. But again, it's interesting to me that these major works, a symphony, an opera, and now this other work that will be premiering next month in Tokyo, Dr. Campanella, all have to deal with ideas of life and death. So we were watching various versions of robot death and immortality as well. So I think I'll stop there. This is technically an incredibly complex work, but I will finish there so we'll have some time. Thank you.